Barakatah Yahweh, Barakatah Yahawashi, Bahasham, Barakahak Wadash, Barakatum. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, glory, and infinite honors to Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahawashi. Double honors to the apostles and elders, a great millstone who ruled and teach well. And peace and salutations to you sincere Akim out there, pushing this word in truth and sincerity to the four corners of the globe. May you brothers endure until the end. This is the brother Ra'aya with another video, and I'm going to start it off in Micah chapter 2, verse 10. Arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. And this is speaking to you Israelites, known as you so-called Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, to arise and depart spiritually from the places you're dwelling. This doesn't mean getting on an airplane and flying back to the Holy Land. If you've come across the word of Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi through the prophets, and it stirred something in your spirit to change your life, according to the scriptures, hey, you got to get your daily bread out here. You got to go to work, follow the laws, and deal amongst these heathens. But outside of that, you should be doing everything you can to spiritually take yourself out of this place. Not hanging out with these heathens, not celebrating these holidays, and not going after the ways of wherever you're dwelling. And this is mainly speaking to you Israelites that are in the United States of America, the main place of our captivity. As it says, because it is polluted, it shall destroy you, even with a sore destruction. We were never meant to come to the United States of America to take place in that so-called American dream. This was a place of punishment for us from going off from the ways of our power, Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi. Hence, why we can never find justice, so-called equality in this society. But for the majority of our people out there, they want to continue to, make a life for themselves in this place and go along to get along and think that after a certain amount of time, so-called racism and discrimination will be forgotten and we'll just become like these other nations that are living in America. But that's not the case. And it's eventually going to get to the point to where Yahweh Bahasham Yahawashi is going to judge you Israelites in great numbers for your hard-headedness in not returning unto him, but continuing to seek after the ways of these heathens and the love of these heathens, chiefly these Edomites, or so-called white people. But I opened up the video with this verse to preface a couple of articles to show that this place is not our rest, and it's destroying us, even with a sword destruction. And the first article I'll be going to is on CNN.com, titled, Hundreds of So-Called White Women, really Edomite women, gather at Colorado Capitol after plea from women of color to use their privilege to demand action on gun violence. Hundreds of Edomite women gathered at the Colorado Capitol Monday morning, with more expected to show up throughout the day to use their privilege in a silent sit-in to demand Governor Jared Polis ban guns and create a gun buyback program. The sit-in also comes amid a national debate over gun control, and nearly 2 months after Polis signed into law 4 gun control bills, including one to expand the state's red flag laws. Here for the Kids, a movement created after a mass shooting in Nashville in March left 6 people dead, including 3 children, calls for primarily Edomite women to peacefully sit in until Polis, a Democrat, signs an executive order banning guns. It was founded by 2 women of color, Syra Rao, who is South Asian American, but for all we know, she could very well be an Israelite foreigner. The Israelite foreigners being the Israelites who have been scattered to these different nations, and after generations mingling amongst these nations have come to look like them and don't look like your traditional so-called Negroes, Latinos, or Native Americans. And Tina Strawn, who is so-called black, more than likely a Judite of the Southern Kingdom. Both are mothers. Strawn told CNN the movement calls for Edomite women to be at the forefront of the sit-in because we know what happens when we show up with demands. We know what happens when we show up in large numbers to fight for our rights. We've been doing it for generations. We're always the ones whose bodies are in the most danger and at most risk. Strawn, an author and owner of Speaking of Racism podcast, said. So here, clearly another example of our people going out there and marching and protesting to try to find justice in this society, which was clearly meant not to be a place of rest for us. Again, arise ye and depart, for this is not your rest. And just more Israelites and more marches are going to more Israelites are going to die, and more marches are going to take place, until Yahushua, the Son of the Most High, makes the second coming to put an end to these heathens as rulerships, chiefly these Edomites in America, and establish the kingdom of heaven. But only the elect, are going to make it on this side. As for the rest of you Israelites, especially in the United States of America, who refuse to return back to your power, you're going to be in the firing lines of the Most High to put you to death in great judgment. So it appealed to me very much that this was actually a time where we are asking so-called black folks and other marginalized and vulnerable communities to sit this one out and allow the Edomite women and their privileged bodies, their privilege, and their power to show up. It's time for them to show up, Strawn added. The movement has garnered support from the entertainment industry, including from Edomite actresses Amy Schumer, who's an Amalekite, Michaela Watkins, and Lake Bell. Watkins, who showed up at the Colorado Capitol early Monday morning and plans to stay until late in the evening, told CNN her initial response to the call to action for mainly Edomite women to participate was, "What? Just Edomite women? That sounds just exclusive." But she understood what the founders meant. Just a complete whoosh moment. But regardless, that's it with this article. As you can see, our people continue to go to these Edomites and other nations for help instead of going to their power, Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai, for help. Hence, why you continue to get a foot deep in your black and so-called black and brown asses. This is Lamentations chapter 4, verse 17. As for us, speaking of you Israelites, our eyes as yet failed for our vain, insignificant help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. These Edomites and these other heathens, but chiefly these Edomites, can't save you Israelites. The Edomites are the sword of the Most High, his whipping stick. And just like America was a place of captivity for us, the captors, the jailers, were these Edomites that the Most High set up to kick our ass for our disobedience from him. But instead of learning that lesson, the majority of our people continue to go to a nation that could not save us for vain help. And these Edomites have a spiritual, perpetual hatred towards you Israelites. It goes much deeper than skin color. This is Ezekiel chapter 35. I'm going to start at verse 1 and jump around. And the header reads, "Prophesy against Mount Seir. And just as Jerusalem is a people before it's a place, Mount Seir, which was an ancient dwelling place of the Edomites, is a people before it's a place." So this chapter is directed towards the nation of the Edomites as a whole. Moreover, the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, "Son of man, set thy face against Mount Seir, and prophesy against it." And now I'm going to jump down to verse 5. Well, I'll read verse 3. "And say unto it, Thus saith the Lord Yahweh, Behold, O Mount Seir, I am against thee, and I will stretch out mine hand against thee, and I will make thee most desolate. These Edomites are the people of the Most High's curse, whom he has indignation towards forever, as it says in Isaiah chapter 34. The Edomites is the one nation that the Most High despises. He created them to hate them. He created them to be the wicked and, afflict our people and do their wickedness for a little season before completely taking that entire nation off the face of the earth. So how do you think the Most High feels seeing his people that he loves, the Israelites, constantly going to them for help instead of going to him for help? But now I'm going to jump down to verse 5. Because thou hast had a perpetual hatred and hast shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword. And when you go to Genesis chapter 27, Esau's blessing was the sword. That's mainly that gun today, which these Edomites have used throughout history to kill you Israelites off in large numbers, and has shed the blood of the children of Israel by the force of the sword in the time of their calamity, in the time that their iniquity had an end. When so-called chattel slavery ended and you had the Reconstruction era and all that, what? You would have thought that after the Israelites were so-called freed through the Emancipation Proclamation, which that wasn't freedom, that was just transferal of ownership from one institution to another, from the institution of the antebellum South slavery to the institution of the U.S. government, becoming a corporate slave, so to speak. You would think that, the Israelites would be allowed to go and live in peace and build their American dream, their 50 acres and a mule. But what did you see? The Ku Klux Klan formed, the Jim Crow laws formed, and places like Black Wall Street and Rosewood, and look up something called Drowned Towns as well. Whenever Jake tried to build up, a city or a society for themselves, these Edomites would always come and burn it down. Why? Because they have that perpetual hatred towards you. And let's go to the definition for that word perpetual in the Strongs, which is H5769, olam, long, duration, antiquity, futurity, forever, everlasting, evermore, perpetual, old, ancient, ancient time, long time, of past, of future, forever, always, continuing existence. So you get the point. It's in these Edomites' spirit to have a perpetual hatred towards you Israelites. And this goes back to the fact that our forefather Jacob supplanted the blessing and the birthright to the kingdom of heaven from their forefather Esau. When you go read Genesis chapter 27, after Esau received his temporary blessing of the fatness of the earth and the dew of heaven, as well as the sword from Isaac, he said, "Soon the days of mourning for my father Isaac are at hand, and then will I slay my brother Jacob." And that sentiment has been with these Edomites unto this very day. Hence why you see continued violence and discrimination towards you Israelites from these Edomites. And when you read Genesis chapter 25, it literally says that Jacob and Esau as infants were fighting in the womb of Rebekah. But now I'm going to go to some more information just to show you this perpetual hatred playing out in real time, continuing to play out. This is another article from CNN.com titled, "Judge, more than likely an Edomite judge, seals evidence in criminal case of Edomite homeowner accused of shooting Israelite teen who went to the wrong house." A Missouri judge granted a motion Thursday to seal evidence in the criminal case against Andrew Lester, who allegedly shot and wounded Ralph Yarl, an Israelite teen, after the 16-year-old went to the wrong home to pick up his siblings. Attorneys for Lester argued that media attention surrounding the case resulted in threats against their client and that the ongoing reporting may hinder his ability to get a fair hearing. Here's that devil right there, an Edomite who you can just tell by his countenance. Hey, today and even back in his younger years, he was a devout nigger hater, devout spick hater, devout Tonto hater. This court finds the evidence adduced and supporting exhibits admitted into evidence not only compels closure, but also for a good cause requires it, the judge wrote. The threats and harassment demonstrate the defendant's life and physical safety are in jeopardy. So here you have this Edomite shooting this teenage Israelite who came to the wrong house. And he wasn't trying to, well, what you hear from the story, he wasn't trying to break in. The account says he clearly rang on the doorbell. So how many robbers do you know that are going to ring on the doorbell? He went to the wrong house to pick up a sibling, and this Edomite, lit him up. And that goes back to that perpetual hatred that these Edomites have towards you Israelites. And again, we have I don't want to paraphrase it, back in that Lamentations, as for us, our eyes as yet failed for our vain help. In our watching, we have watched for a nation that could not save us. Jake goes to these courts to try to find justice, but what did we just read? That the judge ruling over this case sealed evidence that would incriminate the Edomite and show that he had malicious intent in shooting this Israelite, showing that this place is not our rest. This justice system is not for us, but it's for Edomite supremacy and watching after their own. Lester pleaded not guilty in April to the charges of assault in the first degree, an armed criminal action, before being released on a $2,000 bond. Hey, don't forget Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, and that one Israelite, I believe it was in Georgia. He was jogging through the neighborhood and he was literally hunted down and shot to death by those two Edomites riding on a pickup truck. Ralph's family is being represented by Ben Crump, who expressed his disapproval of the judge's decision. And another thing, with that whole Michael Zimmerman thing with Trayvon Martin, after he was found not guilty, this dude went on a tour, relating his story about putting Trayvon Martin to death, and even sold the gun as a trophy piece. Transparency is key here, Crump said. Far too many times, things that occur in the dark leads to the injustice being proliferated in our communities, and we don't want that to happen here. The whole world is watching Kansas City to see if there's going to be accountability and justice for this teenage kid who merely rang the doorbell. And whatever happens with this case, if the Edomites found guilty or not, and there's some semblance of justice that's taken place, this is just another drop in the bucket of the oppression and the judgment from Yahweh Bahashem Yahawashi on you Israelites for not seeing that this place is clearly not your rest and that these Edomites and other heathens aren't your friends. CNN has reached out to Lester's attorney for comment. Ralph went to the wrong address to pick up his younger siblings, 1100 Northeast 115th Street instead of 1100 Northeast 115th Terrace. After ringing Lester's doorbell, Ralph was shot in the head and the arm. The homeowner said he thought Ralph was trying to break into the home and he was scared to death. I feared for my life due to the boy's size, according to the probable cause document obtained by CNN. Ralph's aunt told CNN her nephew is less than 6 feet tall and probably under 170 pounds. And if you go to Google Images and look up this Jake, Ralph Yarrow, he doesn't have that countenance of a Israelite teen who's out here in the streets committing crimes. He looks like a normal so-called black teen. And, I could be right on that or I could be wrong. But regardless, this Jake went and rang on the doorbell. And again, how many burglars ring on the doorbell and was, shot by this Edomite for it? That's it with this article. I'm going to go to my last article on dailymail.co.uk. Mom of 4, 35, is shot dead in front of her son, 9 years old, by neighbor who complained about her children playing outside. No arrest due to stand your ground law. The neighbor reportedly fired a gun through her door, shooting Ijika A.J. Owens. Police said they have identified the suspect, but not yet made any arrests. Stand your ground. Calls are growing for the arrest of a woman accused of shooting dead her mother-of-four neighbor after she complained about the victim's children playing outside. The children of Ijika A.J. Owens were playing in a field near an apartment complex in Ocala, Florida, on Friday when her neighbor began yelling at them to get off her land and calling them racial slurs. Renowned civil rights attorney Ben Crump said. The children then accidentally left an iPad behind after leaving the field, Crump explained, before going back to fetch it. But the neighbor, a 58-year-old Edomite woman who was not named, had taken the iPad and threw it at one of Miss Owens's children, hitting the boy and cracking the screen, the attorney said. The mother of four then marched across the street to speak with the neighbor after hearing of the incident. The neighbor fired through the door, shooting Miss Owens, MS, as she wasn't married, single mother. She later died at the hospital from her injuries. Police have so far made no arrests following Miss Owens' death, although Marion County Sheriff Billy Woods has confirmed police know the identity of the shooter. He said authorities are working to determine what role the state's Stand Your Ground law might play in the incident. Under Florida's Stand Your Ground law, people are essentially permitted to use deadly force if they feel their lives are in danger. Anytime that we think or perceive or believe that the Stand Your Ground law might come into play, we cannot make an arrest. The law specifically says that. Woods said at a press conference on Monday. Looks like we have some updates here. Florida woman appears in court accused of shooting dead black neighbor. Woman who fatally shot mom of four charged with manslaughter. And what we have to rule out is whether this deadly force was justified or not. We can even make the arrest. Woods said detectives were working with the state attorney's office and must investigate possible self-defense claims before they can move forward with any possible criminal charges. This is not a whodunit. We know who did the shooting, Woods said. Marion County Sheriff's Office has not yet publicly identified the shooter. So clearly, this is new information and is coming out. And apparently, if that's that woman up there, she's been identified and has appeared in court for this. Speaking at the press conference, Sheriff Woods also did not confirm or deny Crump's account of the event. He said he wasn't going to stand here and tell you what they're putting out there is inaccurate. I just don't know yet. Woods said they haven't interviewed Owens' children who witnessed the shooting because investigators want child experts to work with the children. So most of the information the deputies have is coming from the shooter, Woods said. Woods acknowledged that Owens' children were engaged in a dispute with the neighbor prior to shooting regarding them being on their lawn. He said officers have responded half a dozen times to complaints about the ongoing feud since January 2021. Woods said the neighbor threw an object at one of the children and inadvertently hit them. He said it was a pair of skates, while Crump said it was an iPad. And I've read another article where they said it was the pair of skates instead of the iPad. So, there's a lot of conflicting, accounts and information coming out. Something was thrown at them, Woods explained. Yes, but not directly at them, and what we're being told now, it just unfortunately may have hit them. He added, the children are a big part of answering a lot of questions. Woods said police understood a heated exchange that took place between Miss Owens and the neighbor, describing it as an aggressive back and forth from both of them. And you know how the so-called black woman is, especially when it comes to her kids. Women are already emotional in general. And when Eve gets riled up, she goes and tries to throw her weight around. But look what happened. She got shot to death. A lot of you so-called black women just need to keep your fucking mouth shut at this point. And you know what? More judgment like this is going to take place on you women. The Most High is starting to light up on you so-called black women and other women of the tribes. Just the other week, the brothers and myself did a video on how down here in New Orleans, there's news coming out damn near every day of you so-called black women getting put to death because you find yourselves in these bad situations. Not just to you women, but to you men of the tribes out there. Hey, you need to start using wisdom out here. Hey, if a situation, occurs, hey, there's nothing wrong with, calling the police and getting them involved. Because a lot of these people, especially these Edomites, are on edge out here. We already read in Ezekiel 35 that they have that perpetual hatred towards you. So if you can handle the situation as civil as possible, do that. Because if you go there, being aggressive and trying to throw your weight around, these Edomites could say, well, I feared for my life. And especially if you're in a stand your ground state, look, they can pull out that gun, put you to death. Whether it be banging on the doors, banging on the walls, and threats being made. And then at the moment is when Miss Owens was shot through the door. Woods concluded, I wish our shooter would have called us instead of taking actions into her own hands. I'd say with this article, you get the point. As we can clearly see, these Edomites still have that perpetual hatred towards you. And look, instances like this are going to continue to take place. And injustice towards you Israelites is going to continue to take place. Why? Because again, this place was not our rest. This was a place of punishment for us for our rebellion from our power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. But the elect of the nation of Israel, hey, they're going to realize that they've been going off from the ways of their power, and they're going to do whatever they can to come back to the good graces of their power and maneuver in society to where they don't get into trouble, pay their taxes, go to work and do all that. But outside of that, don't try to indulge themselves in this society and continue to want to be a part of this society. But as for the majority of our people, hey, they're hard-headed and rebellious, and they're going to continue to go down to their enemies for that vain help, watching after a nation that could not save them and continue to be judged for it. Now let's get back into these precepts. This is Proverbs 11 and 21. Though hand join in hand, hey, you Israelites wanting to join hands with these heathens, especially these Edomites, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. To you Israelites that want to continue to go to these heathens for help, hey, you're going to be judged and punished like these heathens when the times of Jacob's trouble truly kicks off. But as it says, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. The elect of the nation of Israel, again, realizing their disobedience from their power, Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, and doing whatever they can to get back into the good graces of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai, to receive salvation. This is Isaiah chapter 30. I'm going to read verses 1 to 3. Woe to the rebellious children, saith Yahweh, that take counsel, but not of me. Whenever bad things happen to them, injustices, instead of going to the scriptures for answers, going to Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai for answers, they don't, but they go down to their enemies for answers. And that cover with a covering, but not of my spirit, that they may add sin to sin, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth. This is talking about modern day spiritual Egypt, which is the United States of America, as pursuant to Revelation 11, verse 8. Jake goes to these Edomites and their justice system, their government, for help instead of the Most High. Just look at Hurricane Katrina. They were asking for FEMA for help instead of Yahweh Bahashem Yahweh Shai. And as we read in that first article, that Israelite woman was asking Edomite women to come and use their so-called privilege to do a sit-in to demand for gun control to stop the gun violence. But the gun violence is going to continue. It's going to continue from these Edomites on you Israelites. And also, it's these Edomites that put these guns into you Israelites as communities for you to kill each other. I had a Northern Tribes friend. His sister was living up in Chicago for a while, and she was living amongst the Southern Kingdom, Judites, and said they would constantly find crates and alleyways and train cars filled with pistols, Uzis, and I believe in some instances grenades just laying around. For what? So that these different Israelite gangs could get their hands on them and continue to kill each other. This whole society was designed to oppress and cause you Israelites to die in mass numbers, that walk to go down into Egypt and have not asked at my mouth to strengthen themselves in the strength of Pharaoh. Hey, going to Uncle Joe, Moneybag Joe Biden, for help, and trust in the shadow of Egypt, these courts, the government, these welfare and benefit systems, etc., etc. Therefore shall the strength of Pharaoh be your shame, and the trust in the shadow of Egypt your confusion. These very same Edomite institutions you're going to for help during that time of Jacob's trouble are going to be used against you to put you to death. As it says in Ezekiel chapter 21, that great sword has been furbished to slay my people. This Edomite is going to use this government and the military and these other forces to, come to you Jakes' neighborhoods, put you down during a state of martial law, round you up, and send you to these detention centers where you're going to be tortured to death. Never forget that this Edomite has a perpetual hatred towards you and seeks to cut us off from being a nation, and not just us knowing who we are, but us physically from this plane of existence. I'm going to close it out in Isaiah chapter 31, verses 1-3. Woe to them that go down to Egypt, America, these Edomites, for help, and stay on horses and trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong. You see that this Edomite American government is still somewhat strong. The military is somewhat strong, even though it's getting stretched thin. The government, there will be an economic collapse in this country, and the dollar is going to lose that reserve status and become like toilet paper. But as for now, the dollar is still the reserve currency, and our people cling under this system and see the strength in it, so they think that that's going to be where they're going to find help from. That trust in chariots because they are many, and in horsemen because they are very strong, but they look not unto the Holy One of Israel, neither seek Yahweh. Yet he also is wise and will bring evil, and will not call back his words, but will arise against the house of evildoers, and against the help of them that work iniquity. Now the Egyptians, the Edomites, are men, and not the Most High, and their horses flesh, and not the spirit. The Most High set up these Edomites, set up America to rule for a season before taking it out of the way. And you Israelites, the wicked of our people, reverence these Edomites more than the Most High who set them up. When Yahweh shall stretch out his hand, both he that helpeth shall fall, and he that is hoping shall fall down. Though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not go unpunished. Those that built up the system and those that cling to uphold the system are going down, and they shall all fail together. These Edomites and other heathens in America, as well as the wicked of our people that want to continue to cleave under the system, everybody's going to be judged during Jacob's trouble, get killed in these racial skirmishes, a state of civil unrest, martial law, the famines, the pestilences, and ultimately by those 200 million nuclear missiles that are going to hit this place and turn it into the biblical lake of fire from sea to shining sea, and then a desolate, uninhabitable wasteland afterwards. And the only people that are going to make it out are the elect of the nation of Israel, who have arisen and departed from this place spiritually and are taking themselves out of the ways of this system as much as they can and hearkening under their power, Yahweh Bahashem, Yahweh Shai. So that's it with this video. And with this video, I hope you sincere Akim and Akwath were edified. Just keep strong. We're almost out of this final wicked captivity of the heathen nations, chiefly of the Edomites. And as always, I'm going to say Abad Babal, Kwam Yasharallah, and until next time, Shalom.